अंधेरा हो गया, पूरा अंधेरा झाला, पूरा
Good morning everyone and a very warm welcome to all of you. I am Flavia Mosquita De Silva and I head the brand, PR and digital communications for Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital, Mumbai. Thank you all for joining us here at Gallup's Maharashtra Racecourse as Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital shares a moment we are genuinely proud of. A conversation that doesn't get spoken enough in India. Epilepsy in children. And what happens when the right treatment reaches a child at the right time? The epilepsy program at Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital was started by a dedicated team of doctors, Dr. Anaita Udvadya Hegde, Head Neurosciences Department, Dr. Pragna Gadgil, Senior Consultant Pediatric Neurology, and Dr. Saurabh Samantrai, Senior Consultant Pediatric Neurosurgery, with a vision to build quaternary pediatric neurology subspecialties in India. Today we are here to share that vision and what it has led. Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital has now crossed 175 plus pediatric epilepsy surgeries and counting, making this India's only dedicated and largest program for drug-resistant epilepsy in children. But beyond that number, what we really want to leave with you today are the stories behind it. Children who couldn't read, couldn't walk, couldn't speak, and are all doing that today. Over the couple of years, you will hear from all of the doctors who have led this program and the families who have lived through it. So let's get this press conference started. To open this morning's proceedings and set the context for the brand and the unit, I'd like to invite Mr. Balvinder Walia, Director of Narayana Health Jaipur Unit and Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital, to share a few opening remarks.
Very, very good morning to all the media friends, esteemed guests, my team of doctors for this press conference. So my name is Balvinder Walia. I look after two hospitals of Narayana Health. So one is Jaipur, which is a multi-speciality hospital, and one of its kind and one of the best hospitals in pediatric super specialized care, that is SRCC Narayana Children's Hospital, Mumbai. So for over 2 decades, Narayana Health has been committed to making advanced, high-quality healthcare affordable across masses in the country. And not just in India, we have now a global footprint. We are present in certain countries like UK and the Caribbean. Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital, which we are talking about, we are representing today here, has been an important part of this journey, building specialized pediatric care across various centers of excellence. Now, neurosciences is one such area where conditions like drug-resistant epilepsy, they are in children continue to be widely, misunderstood and unfortunately undertreated also. Over the last 3.5 years, to be precise, our dedicated pediatric epilepsy team and the program has grown in India as one of the largest of its kind. So the achievement is not just about numbers. We are not talking here just about numbers. It represents what is possible when children with complex epilepsy are evaluated and treated through a focused multidisciplinary approach, particularly those kids where medicines alone are not helping. For these children and families, you would all agree and acknowledge that every seizure which the child has can have a significant impact on their life, the education, the quality of life, and for the whole family. So our endeavor therefore has been to bring together the right expertise, technology, and a great clinical team to give these children the best possible chance for a better future. I am very pleased to have to host you, all of you today here, and we would request you to help carry this message across masses so that many kids who are dealing and many families who are dealing with this issue, they are aware about it, and they have a center and a hope and a team which has already treated many of these kids successfully. So thank you again. I will now hand it over back to Flavia and then to our star team, who has led us in this remarkable journey which we want to talk about. Thank you very much again for being here and for your time. I am truly privileged to stand before you and be a part of this press conference. Thank you.
Thank you for that, sir. And with that context set, let's move into the heart of today's conversation. It is now my privilege to invite Dr. Anaita Udvada Hegde, the head of Pediatric Neurosciences Department at the Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital, Mumbai, to say a few words. Over to you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to all of you for coming here to be with us. As the head of Department of Neurosciences, it's been my dream over the years to build up a super speciality department. These were facilities and benefits that the adult population have been getting for so long. And I think it's time that the pediatric population get the benefit of all these super services, cutting-edge science, which hopefully now will become part of everyday life. The SRCC Children's Hospital managed by Narayana is really the perfect setup or the perfect center for something of a super speciality frame. We have the infrastructure, we have multiple super specialities all under one roof. The agenda is so that the child should get the benefit of a holistic care as against just one single condition. Being in the institute since its inception, which was in 2017, the Department of Neurosciences has grown considerably. So we have epilepsy surgery, movement disorders, cerebral palsy, neurodevelopmental disorders, genetics, metabolics, and trust me, we have a specialist for each of these specialities in the Department of the Neurosciences. Coming to epilepsy now. So basically, epilepsy would be maybe the single most or the second most after developmental disorders, conditions that we see in the Department of Neurology. Okay, so this, given that the incidence of our population, or given the incidence of our country is roughly about 1.5 billion people, 30%, and we contribute about 19% of the world's population. 30% of these fall into the less than 30 age group, or in the pediatric to the young adolescent age group, in the 0 to 19 age group. So we are looking at roughly 50 million people in our country alone. Okay, so I can just... So roughly we are looking at about 50 million people alone in our country in the 0 to 19 age group. The prevalence of epilepsy is about 8 per 1,000, and the incidence is about 58 per 100,000 on an annual basis. We are roughly looking at 4 million children
In our country alone, when I say children and adolescents in India, in our country who have epilepsy, you will hear as the time goes by in the course of today that about 30 to 35% of these children have what you call intractable or refractory epilepsy. The others usually get treated by medications a lot more easily, but 30% to 40% may have refractory epilepsy. So they're looking at 1 to 1.5 million children in our country who are potential candidates for epilepsy surgery program. That's not a small number. The important part I want to also highlight to you that 80% of brain growth happens in the first 5 years of life. 80% of neuronal circuits are laid down in your brain in the first 5 years of life before any of us even know how we are looking after our kids and bringing them up. So if you can intervene in crucial ages, which is the young age, you can make a world of a difference, not just to the child's family, the future, as well as its entire development over the next few decades. But at the end of the day, this is not just neurosciences. Okay, it would be wrong of me to stand here not be able to thank everybody. We are a team, and you can only work when you work collectively together. So while we may have super specialists in one space or the other, we have such super specialists in all spaces. And it's only when all of us put our hands together, we have anesthesia, we have development, we have psychology, we have radiology, we have neurophysiology. This is just to name those who are in the epilepsy surgery program, forget everything else. So collectively, the agenda is a one-point agenda. We want to see what we can do to make the life of the child and their family better. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Dr. Pradnya Gargil, Senior Consultant Pediatric Neurology and the lead of the Pediatric Epilepsy Program at our hospital, Narayana Health SRCC Children's Hospital, and part of the core team that has built this epilepsy program, to share your perspective. Over to you, Doctor.
A big thanks for Anita to set the stage. I think it's very clear. The statistics speak for themselves, the numbers speak for themselves. We basically have millions of children in our country with a difficult epilepsy, and they need to be helped. But why do we need to help children with difficult epilepsy? So what's the cost of epilepsy that is not getting controlled with anti-seizure medications? I think that's the real question. Okay. One is very intuitive. You have a child who is having seizures all the time. Simple things like going for a birthday party, going for a puja to someone's house, going to school becomes a problem because seizures don't call you and say, I'm going to happen now. There are patients who have seizures in which they fall down, in which they go blank, they might have very dramatic jerking of the whole body, and then they're having it all the time. Every day, every week, every month, whatever. But the fact that the epilepsy is so omnipresent, fit kabhi bhi aa sakta hai, that is a very, very difficult thing to just live with at a conceptual basis. Then, from a medical perspective, what is epilepsy, what are seizures? They are like your brain is short-circuiting, your brain is not working correctly. So the risks to life are real. You might fall down because you get a seizure and you don't realize, and it can be a simple thing like you're just going down the stairs of your school and you fall down and you will have a physical injury because of a seizure. We know that if seizures go on for 4, 5, 7 minutes, they can injure the brain permanently. And unfortunately, what part of the brain gets injured? It's the memory-making region of the brain. We know that epilepsy can contribute to sudden deaths in an active seizure, or even without the context of a seizure, are a well-described phenomenon. So, epilepsy is that white elephant in the room. I have families, you'll be surprised. The grandparents don't know that the grandchild has epilepsy. It's such a big stigma. But then, when you're not talking about it, how are you going to handle the risks that come with epilepsy in a realistic perspective? But the risks are very, very real, which is why we doctors get so worried about uncontrolled epilepsy. Then, of course, like Anita said, you have a brain which is developing. And then it's short-circuiting. How is it going to develop to its best potential? Impossible. So it's not only the seizures that's the cause and the risks that come from seizures. But it's also the problem that even if tomorrow the epilepsy goes away one way or the other, but then the child's brain has lost the chance to develop optimally. जिस basis पे all their career, life में क्या करेंगे, all that depends on your development. So that also takes a hit. And the social isolation. How many schools have gotten letters, we write letters to school say epilepsy ठीक होने तक बच्चे को स्कूल मत भेजिए. How is that possible? स्कूल जाना बच्चे का धर्म है. And then epilepsy child को इसके लिए बोल रहे हैं स्कूल मत भेजो. The social stigma is they don't play down. I have had families where other families pull their kids away when a child with epilepsy goes down to play or doing something again. हम लोग just we take it for granted in day-to-day life. So the social isolation has a much bigger hit from a long-term perspective, not only for the child but for the family overall. If it's a rural area and a girl has epilepsy, what are the chances that that family is going to get accepted, that girl is going to get married? Very, very less. So there are so many reasons why we all of us need to talk about epilepsy, and that's a sincere request to the press here. Please start talking about epilepsy. Till we don't talk about it, the diagnoses are not going to get made, patients are not going to reach doctors, and the treatment is not going to happen. Now coming back to the medical part of it, for the difficult subset of epilepsy, surgery is a cure. Remember the medications are anti-seizure. They are like our diabetes medicine or our diabetes
English, Hindi,
No
Marathi.
diabetes medicines cure the diabetes. Similarly, anti-seizure medication are not curing diabetes. Just trying to control. And then in the subset that I am talking about,
English.
they're not even controlling it. So, thankfully there is a subset where surgery is a cure for the epilepsy. Or surgery is disease modifying. And we have our friends and families here to come. We will shortly listen to real life stories as to how this actually happens. The trick here you have this big cohort of people with epilepsy. A lot of them have uncontrolled epilepsy. And I'm saying in some surgeries a big treatment option. How do you identify this? That's it. And why is it so different? Should you identify it? Absolutely. This is the ILA. You know what ILA is? You must have all heard of WHO. It decides everything around health in the world. ILA is the parent organization which makes all policies around epilepsy. It's called International League Against Epilepsy worldwide. So ILA has clearly said in that any child who has a difficult epilepsy, or you think is surgically available, and child, adult, old person, whoever, needs to be referred to a center who is capable of doing it. So it is now standard of care in management of epilepsy. Then why aren't so many people doing it? Why are the hospital team telling you, sending you press invites, saying we are the only center? Come on, we are, from our skill sets wise, we have great doctors in the country, we have great hospitals. Why are then we the only center as of today doing it, at least for pediatrics? And overall, why is there such a big treatment gap in the context of epilepsy? The reason is epilepsy and all neurological diseases. Worldwide there are gaps. That is why the WHO has started the IGAP initiative for the neurological burden across the world. Is because it's a very, very tricky subject to handle. It's one of the most trickiest subspecialties of medicine to handle. And when you want to do it in pediatrics, everything becomes 10 times more difficult when you are doing it with a child. But is it a new thing? Are we experimenting? Not at all. The first epilepsy surgery happened in 1800s in London, which is where all three of us trained actually in the same institute. I think we're lucky. First epilepsy surgery happened before the MRI was invented, before the EEG was made. So it's a very robust concept because it's a functional concept. Okay. What is epilepsy? It's a little dramatic video, but epilepsy is basically long electrical circuits running in the brain. Right? So if you have to cure epilepsy surgically, you need to treat a bad electricity using carpentry skills. How do you align the two? Where can you see electricity? No surgeon will know. Appendix, hernia, hydrocele, slip disc, brain tumor. The surgeons have a physical target to go after. Correct? They're like, oh, ये दिख रहा है, ये निकालना है, ये टूटा है, इसको repair करना है. Where can you? How can any one of us see electricity? You can't. But you are saying you have to treat it with mechanical means, like carpentry, with all due respect. So how do you do that? That is why it's a very specialized concept of neurosurgery. It's not like any other neurosurgery. No neurosurgeon or neurosurgery team can just stand up and say, do epilepsy surgery. Because you need to be trained in the concepts of functional neurosurgery, have the skill sets, have the infrastructure to build it up. And remember, we need to do it by preserving brain function. We can't say, oh, we're going to treat your epilepsy, but you won't be able to see tomorrow or talk tomorrow. That's not negotiable. So we need to cure epilepsy without causing any additional neurological injury to the child. So I think that the challenge is that these two things. You need skill sets and you need infrastructure. And I think that is the reason worldwide and also in India, we have a lot of specialized centers. Why is it so difficult? It's because there is a very detailed process of pre-surgical evaluation. Epilepsy surgery is the only surgery where you need to be admitted for tests before the surgery is offered. Any other surgery, you don't need to do that. Whether it's liver transplant, kidney transplant, whether it's cardiac surgery, you do an angio, you do a CAT, and you get taken up for a bypass or a stent or whatever. Oncology, all of oncology, with a scan, you see the tumor, you get admitted for whatever procedure it is. But the process of even offering surgery, understanding the correct patients, is actually a detailed one because it's functional neurosurgery. So what is the process? Patients get admitted. That's a difficult time for patients. They come to the big boss, big brother kind of a scenario. And I don't know that all of you know that serial of Salman Khan, where that camera is going on. So it's a similar thing that a VUEG, it's called a VUEG, where the seizures get recorded on the camera so that we understand where is the electricity abnormal, where is the problem. Then they get some very fancy scans. These are not run-of-the-mill MRI scan. Either the MRI करके चलेगा क्या मैडम? नहीं चलेगा because that MRI is designed with a different way to try and capture the area of anomaly. Plus, sometimes you do additional tests in the MRI to tell us about function. And we want to know how that brain is functioning, which is why we are taking neuropsych teams to take it. In neuropsychology, people misconstrue it as psychology. Depression है क्या? Stress है क्या? Test करने के लिए. What we are testing in neuropsychology is which part of the brain is not working right. Because the part that is not working right is probably the area which is the back next. Right? So is it right? Is it left? Is it aage? Is it piche? We are actually asking a lot out of neuropsychology. Just the same questions they are asking out of the EEG and out of the MRI. And then all these things need to be brought together to a cohesive saying, ये बच्चे के ब्रेन में इधर से इधर शॉर्ट सर्किट हुआ है, वो निकालने तो the chance or risk की और कुछ खराबी आएगी, additional खराबी आएगी, ये बहुत कम है, ये acceptable है, and if once that concept forms, then the surgeons come into the picture to actually do research. That's when it gets offered. But all this is done together. So imagine a hospital needs so many specialists, and they don't even need the specialists, they need the specialists to understand these concepts, and they talk to each other. So if anybody is interested, every Monday morning we have something called an epilepsy surgery meeting, where all this data for each patient gets discussed in a very systematic way. So this is probably the only specialty of medicine where a lot of background work happens. Patients don't see that. Otherwise, from a patient perspective, from a layman perspective, your work, the doctor does work for you only when you have met the doctor. That consult is the crux. Sure, of course the consult is the crux, but a lot of background work happens to be able to select can be offered epilepsy surgery safely and effectively to a given patient. With that, I think I'll call Dr. Saurabh to talk about the actual nuances of epilepsy.
Very much to all of you, and special thank you to all the families and all the staff of our program who have spared time to be a part of this function today. I think this is all for them and for them. I know I'm a surgeon. It is an epilepsy surgery program, but I think before I go on to the nuances of epilepsy surgery, I've always wondered because I'm a neurosurgeon and I do many other kinds of surgeries, but why is epilepsy as a disease so unique? That is because I think whenever a disease declares itself, of course it's painful and unfortunate for the family when they know that their child has a disease. But I think the moment the declaration of the diagnosis is made, the child separates himself from the rest of the society. So the moment you know that there is a child with a disease, the sensitivity, the empathy for that child goes up in the family, in the parents, and in the society. Because they know that this child has a problem and needs to be helped. That is where I think epilepsy becomes real. Children and people with epilepsy are like you and me. They sit with us, they learn with us, they go to school with us, they do jobs with us, and yet no one knows that they are struggling in their personal space. And not only that, because they struggle, unlike all other diseases, the heart disease possibly comes with a time frame that it is treated, and a malignancy or a cancer that is untreated possibly leads to fatality, but with epilepsy, you have to live. And that is where the challenge is. They are in society, but society, starting from your parents to your relatives, does not acknowledge it. And because the disease does not get acknowledged, the patient has to live with it, doesn't get referred, and because the patient doesn't get referred, believe me, the empathy is missing even in doctors. Because doctors themselves don't know about this as a disease entity, forget the chances for treating this disease. So I think with that backdrop, I think epilepsy becomes a bigger challenge not only for the families but for the society as a whole. However, with that, I think after Kanaka and Dr. Pragya set the stage, epilepsy is not one single surgery. I can't put a number to the different types of epilepsies. And remember, it's a section of neurosurgery. But broadly, epilepsy surgery can be divided into these 5 types. The first type is the headline item, which is resection. This is the surgery which we are angling at because this surgery is the difference between leading a normal life and leading a life with epilepsy. Resection cures epilepsy. The second surgery is disconnection. At the moment, I know this gets technical, but you can remember disconnection is when you are disconnecting a diseased part of the brain from the rest of the brain. Neuromodulation, radiofrequency ablation, and EEG, I will sort of quickly demonstrate as we go forward. So this is actually the surgery which is like a magic wand. We will hear stories today. There are people who have lived with epilepsy for decades. You do the surgery, the evening of surgery, the patient is free for life. That is the impact of epilepsy surgery, and yet we have people in our society, we have kids and children living with it, not knowing that they have a solution at hand, as will be illustrated by one of our young superstars today. So, resection of lesion is a surgery. If we can pick up a patient and treat him, he's treated for life, and hence the impact. But these are these other surgeries, which especially in the pediatric setup, are critical, and like Dr. Pragya said, they are disease modifying to an impact that even though they might not stop every seizure, they change the life of the child and they change the life of the family, and hence their integration to the society overall. So one of these surgeries which we do very commonly is corpus callosotomy. As you will see, there is a band of fibers in the brain called the corpus callosum. On the left of your screen, you see electricity going from one side of the brain to the other. On the right side of the screen, you will see that the fiber right in the middle has been disconnected. So now we have 2 sides of the brain who don't talk to each other. I know it's difficult to grasp that, but we do these surgeries, and believe me, despite 2 sides of the brain disconnected from each other, children become only better because they are treated from their epilepsy. And practically, this is important for kind of seizures where children are dropping. So we have children who come to us with drops every day. They drop in an instant and hurt themselves, break bones, break their skull, emergency admissions, so it's practically life-threatening. One surgery and the drop attacks stop on the evening of surgery, and over a period of time, as you will see, so many people, some of the children who have come today, they change as human beings. That is the impact of this surgery. This is called corpus callosotomy. Now this is sort of 2 steps forward. I just tried to make it a little more pictorial. The right side brain is the abnormal brain, the left side brain is the healthy brain. So in this surgery, what we do is we disconnect the whole abnormal red brain from the normal left brain. So we are doing a disconnection of 2 brains. This is different from the corpus callosotomy because there we are not touching the brains. So we disconnect. This is a complex surgery, but yet again, this is a curative surgery. On the evening of hemispherotomy, patients who have suffered from seizures for life are treated permanently. So hemispherotomy is an impactful surgery, big surgery, but critical in the treatment of seizures. Of course, different, like each of these surgeries are chosen basis the pre-surgical evaluation that needs a big team. But again, this is a curative surgery. Now, posterior quadrant disconnection is like a little brother of hysterectomy. In posterior quadrant disconnection, what we do is the posterior part, the red part, meaning the backside of the brain is disconnected from the front and the complex structures in the middle that you see. Again, this is a curative surgery if done in the right patient. Hence, patient selection becomes key. And therefore, again, intuitively, you see that though it's a surgical program, the surgeon comes to talk to you last. Because there is a lot of mind and a lot of brain that goes into working of the patient, without which this surgery is not going to work. And hence it needs a bigger team than just a surgeon. Now these are again complex surgeries where we are now doing neuromodulation. So in these surgeries, we implant certain devices. We don't directly go and operate or disconnect or remove. We implant devices which tries to play around with the flow of current within the brain. So this is one of those neuromodulation surgeries called vagal nerve stimulation, where you see that there is a device implanted in the chest, and then there is a wire which goes right up to a nerve in the neck, and through that, as you see through the yellow line, we are sending electrical impulses from the device in the chest and trying to modulate the current flow in the brain. So this is called neuromodulation, vagal nerve stimulation. Very, very impactful in controlling epilepsy in children who cannot be subjected to the surgeries I enlisted before. Now this is deep brain stimulation. This is again neuromodulation, but in here we place an implant in the chest, and then there are two wires going into the brain. Again, what we are trying to do in both these neuromodulation surgeries is that we send electrical impulses through the programmed device in the chest and try to control the current flow in the brain. Now this is radio frequency ablation. Again, we have a family who will talk about their experience with radio frequency ablation today. Technically challenging, sort of a high-tech surgery, and it looks high-tech as well. But critical. There are surgeries, there are cases where we can't really go and remove a part of the brain. Also, there are surgeries where we can't really implant devices. That is when, by very complex devices and calculations, of course, after thorough pre-surgical evaluation, which the whole team does, we put in a small wire in the brain and burn a certain area of the brain, if I may be allowed the use of the word burn. It basically means that we give a little bit of heat energy to that part of the brain and stop it from functioning. So what happens is that is sort of, like if I may say, like we had class monitors in a classroom. The class monitor is responsible for the whole classroom to behave. So that is that one hub, one node in the brain which has to be found out. And then if we burn that, epilepsy can be controlled. And we have one family today who will say how doing this surgery has made such a big difference. Again, radio frequency ablation. Now this is TOE. This is again, probably we are one of the few centers in the country who do pediatric TOE EEG. Now, in this surgery, we implant 10-15 electrodes through complex calculations in particular areas of the brain to study brain electricity. And then basis electrical waveforms from within the brain. Dr. Naika, we all together discuss that which of those contacts, so you see each of these wires has yellow points. So a certain point on that wire may be the seat of epilepsy in that child. So we do a stereo EEG first, which is a complex surgery only to put wires in the brain or electrodes in the brain. Then we record electricity from within the brain. Then it's Dr. Naika's job to tell us which point in the yellow electrode is giving the epilepsy. And then it's my job to go back again and try and see if we can do something to that part. That is stereo EEG. So overall, these are technically challenging surgeries, but they can be done if you have the right tools, if you have the right infrastructure, and if you have the right team who understands the nuances. Team is key. It can be done safely. In fact, the youngest patient is around 3 months old in our center. So age is not a restriction at all. The time it is detected, epilepsy, especially the epilepsy which we think can be cured by surgery, needs to be referred to an epilepsy surgery team. So it can be done safely is something that I need to emphasize. Resective surgery can cure epilepsy. And all the other forms of surgery are disease modifying and life changing, which you will see later on in the debate. And finally, I again want to emphasize early epilepsy surgery is the key. So identify the disease and let the patient and the child and the family see a team who understands the disease. And finally, I will apologize to all my team members here. I might have missed out on names or teams, but like I said, it's a surgical program, but this is what it needs. So the first team is the neurology team. So you need pediatric neurologists, you need neuropsychologists, you need EEG technicians, you need epilepsy and neurology fellows, epilepsy coordinators, social worker team. Then in the OR, You need your pediatric anesthesia team, you need the pediatric ICU for the perioperative care, you need neuro OT staff and technicians who understand all these complex infrastructure and machines that are involved in surgery. You need the pediatric neuro rehab, which is very critical after the surgery. And finally, you need a surgeon to do the surgery. So, yeah, with all that, I think we'll move ahead with the rest of the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saurav. Now we move to the part of today's program that we think matters the most, hearing directly from the families who have lived this journey. I again invite Dr. Saurav to introduce each of our patients and their families one by one. So, over to you.
Hello. So, yes, so we will crack on. The first family, well, what introduction? I think I should speak less and let him speak. He's a young man. I think I draw a lot of motivation from him because I think the first thing that strikes you when he walks into the room is his calm disposition and his patience that he has had with his epilepsy. And I think that exemplifies this whole press conference and the epilepsy surgery program. Because I think surgery changed his life. And before I go on further, because I can talk a lot about Karan, but I'll invite Karan to the stage. Please come and share your story with him. And remember, there are many, many children like Karan out there who are still not treated. So, and I'm sorry, Karan, I call you a child. You're a young man.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karan Shah. I have lived with epilepsy for over 20 years. I was diagnosed when we were on holiday in Canada when I was 7 years old. I don't remember a whole lot from the early years of my epilepsy. After my family and I returned to India, we were fortunate to get an appointment with Dr. Anayata, who has been my doctor since 2007, and a very important part of my journey ever since. Over the years, Dr. Anayata prescribed many combinations of AEDs, and I have undergone numerous tests and investigations, including MRIs, video EEGs, and PET scans. Despite this, controlling my seizures for extended periods of time remained extremely difficult. I've had seizure spikes lasting as long as 45 days, where I would experience 10 to 12 events in a single night. Living with that uncertainty for so many years was physically and emotionally draining for me and for my family. Then in September of last year, I started what would turn out to be my longest seizure spike, lasting until my sleep surgery on 13 March 2026. It was the most difficult period of my life. As a family, we were not sure what more we could do to get some relief. We reached out to Dr. Anayata in desperation, and she suggested that we do one more MRI with the new harness put for. And that was only in my brain that revealed MRI changed everything. It revealed identified previously. On the one question that haunted me for 20 years, why was I getting seizures like this? Once Dr. Anayata and her team discovered the lesion, the next step was to find the right lesion. She and Dr. Pratya moved swiftly, and the surgical team led by Dr. Saurav started working on my case. We learned that finding a lesion is one thing, but being able to access it and surgically remove it is another thing entirely. We spent an anxious week waiting as the team evaluated the pros and cons of the lesion ethics. I was afraid that despite learning that a lesion was causing my seizures, the doctors determined that it was comfortable, then I would have to resign myself to living with seizures for the rest of my life. Finally, Dr. Pradna and Dr. Saurabh called us for a meeting to discuss the surgery. Of course, I had a million questions, but the doctors answered every one of them patiently. Their confidence convinced us that we were making the right decision. This was the first time I felt that I had a fighting chance to be free of seizures, and I was going to take it. Post-surgery, the over-recovery period was relatively short, and in fact, I was able to hold a conversation the very next morning. Since the surgery, I had been completely seizure-free and sleeping fitful. I had spent so many years dealing with my seizures that I had started to accept that this would simply be my reality. The surgery has improved my life in 4 significant ways. I'm able to sleep through the night, and I realize that while we value sleep, we grossly underestimate the strain interrupted sleep patterns can put on one's health. I feel I can finally travel without worry. I can now focus on my career and long-term goals, and I'm looking forward to being off all my epilepsy medications shortly. I'm incredibly grateful to Dr. Naika, Dr. Prajna, Dr. Saurabh, and their teams of extremely qualified doctors, and to everyone who supported me throughout this journey. I know that my journey was a long one, but I'm glad that I never gave up hope. Today, being able to stand here and say that I am seizure-free is something I did not think would be possible, and for that I am eternally grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karan, for sharing that with us. I think Ma'am wants to speak something.
Karan has been my patient, as he said, for 20 years. For an amazing family who has stood by him all this while. But it took a team with specialized interests and with speciality to actually give him the final product, which is to make him seizure-free. I think it's been a long journey, and trust me, I have struggled many a times. But I think it's worth every bit of it at the end of the day, even if it's taken time to give him something where he will have a life which hopefully will be absolutely normal, with no restrictions going forward. Thank you for coming here and sharing your story with me.
If I may add, I mean, Karan's story has been a long story, but it has been a long story for his mom and dad as well. And I think he's really lucky that he's had this family who fought the battle with him together. And eventually, like I say, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And I think no story exemplifies it better than Karan and his family story. That's all. Okay. So we move on to the next family. Now this is a family of a small child. So what exemplifies this case is the fact that the child starts getting seizures from a very, very young age. Young couple, they themselves are of course horrified by what is happening. It then starts having an impact on the child's development, and they are going for multiple options. And this is such a rare disease that if you search online, you do not know what to do. So I think it was a very, very difficult decision for them to make. Whilst we told them that surgery might help, I think for them to decide for surgery in a young child where so many other sources of information tell them that maybe nothing will work, that is where I think they took the bold step, and today, they are here to dance here to tell us what you went through.
नमस्कार, माझं नाव सतीश महाडिक. जसं डॉक्टरांनी सांगितलं की माझी मुलगी फार लहान असताना माझी मुलगी जेव्हा लहान होती त्यावेळेस माझी मुलगी हसते. लहान मुलं असतात आणि ॲज अ पॅरेंट म्हणून आम्हाला असं वाटतं की अरे वा दे आर व्हेरी हॅपी. ते का हसते, कशासाठी असते आम्हाला नाही माहिती, पण ती हसते आणि दे आर हॅपी की चलो ठीक आहे. हा डिझीज आहे हेच आम्हाला माहिती नाही, हा डिझीज आहे. आणि जेव्हा आम्ही डॉक्टरांकडे पोहोचलो, जेव्हा कुठल्या तरी वेळी आलो आम्ही आणि आम्हाला कळलं की हा डिझीज आहे. डिझीज आल्यानंतर जेव्हा कळलं की हे फार काहीतरी मोठं आहे, आणि त्यानंतर आम्ही घेतलेली स्टेप, जेव्हा डॉक्टर प्रज्ञा आहेत, डॉक्टर सौरभ आहेत, जेव्हा त्यांना भेटलो त्यांनी सांगितलं की हा खूप मोठा प्रकार आहे, जो जेनेटिक सीझर्स म्हणून आपण कदाचित मला मेडिकल नाव सांगता येणार नाही व्यवस्थित, बट जेनेटिक सीझर्स म्हणून प्रकार आहे. आणि तिला एपिलेप्सी कंटिन्यूस येतात, सीझर्स येतात. तिला शाळेमध्ये पण हा त्रास व्हायला लागला. ज्यावेळेस तिचा त्रास हा वाढायला लागला त्यावेळेस डॉक्टरांनी ऑलरेडी सजेस्ट केलं होतं की आपल्याला सर्जरी करावी लागेल. शरीरातल्या कुठल्या अंगाची सर्जरी जर करायची असेल तर माणूस थोडा हे होतो की चला ठीक आहे, हाताची आहे, पायाची आहे किंवा कसली. ब्रेनची सर्जरी ती 5 वर्षाच्या मुलीची इज लाईक डिफिकल्ट टू अंडरस्टँड ॲज अ पॅरेंट. आणि जेव्हा आम्ही डॉक्टर सौरभ आणि प्रज्ञाशी जेव्हा कन्सल्टेशनसाठी बसतो आणि सरांनी आम्हाला सजेस्ट केलं की नाही हे खूप गरजेचं आहे, आणि तो डिसिजन जो आहे तो आम्ही कसा घेतला ते मी आणि माझी वाईफ कदाचित नाही सांगू शकत की आपलं मूल एक ब्रेन सर्जरीसाठी कोणाच्या हातात देणार आणि ॲज अ मिडल क्लास फॅमिली म्हणून आम्ही आलेलो आहोत. त्यामुळे बरीचशी आपले नातेवाईक असतात जे आपल्याला सजेस्ट करतात की अरे हे नका अजून काहीतरी बघताय, आयुर्वेदिक बघताय किंवा काय वगैरे. पण आमचं ट्रस्ट होतं की आम्ही जेव्हा आम्ही बसलो सरांसमोर आणि मॅमसमोर की त्यांनी सांगितलं की याचे कॉन्सिक्वेन्सेस काय. सेकंड जो कदाचित मगाशी मी डॉक्टरांना आम्ही सांगितलं की ज्यावेळेस आम्ही ओपीडीसाठी जात होतो सरांकडे आणि जेव्हा आम्ही पेशंट्स बघत होतो 12 वर्ष 13 वर्ष आणि त्यांची अवस्था, त्यावेळेस आम्हाला कळलं की खूप गरजेचं आहे आत्ताच करणं. आणि सरांनी ती सजेस्ट केला ज्यावेळेस ती सर्जरी झाली. आज 1.5 वर्ष झाला त्याच्यावर माझ्या मुलीला APC झाला. त्यामुळे थँक्यू सो मच सरांसाठी आणि मॅमसाठी की त्यांनी आम्हाला
मी मराठीत किंवा हिंदीत बोलू कारण ऑडियन्स मराठी करायचे कळणार नहीं. अगर थोड़ा सा पूछ सकूं कि ऑपरेशन के पहले जैसे आपने बोला द ट्रिकी बिट स्पृहा में दिक्कत ये थी, स्पृहा हंसती थी. माँ बाप को ये समझना कि हंसना भी बीमारी हो सकता है, यही पापा बोलने की कोशिश करने की हंसना भी बीमारी हो सकती है, ये समझने के लिए 2-3 साल निकले. और हाइपोथैलेमिक हेमाटोमा ये इस तरह की कंडीशन है कि जिसमें हंसना एक तरह का सीजर होता है जो आप देखते हैं. लेकिन अगर ये बीमारी चलती रहे और इसका एक तरह से जो प्रकोप होता है दिमाग पे ये होता है कि बढ़ती उम्र के साथ हर गुजरते साल के साथ बच्चे का डेवलपमेंट ठीक होता है, उसका बिहेवियर चेंज हो जाता है. वो बहुत सारे जैसे हम इंग्लिश में कहते हैं रेज अटैक्स, ये बच्चे इतने मिसबिहेव हो जाते हैं, एंग्री हो जाते हैं, स्कूल जाना दूर की बात है, बच्चों से लड़ते हैं और सीजर इतने ज्यादा होने लगते हैं कि उनको संभालना मुश्किल होता है. तो आपकी बच्ची को क्या दिक्कत थी, शॉर्ट में बोल पाएंगे, सीजर तो थे बट क्या फर्क पड़ा है, सर्जरी के पहले क्या नहीं कर रही थी जो अब कर रही है?
वो बहुत एंग्री मोड में थी जिसमें वो हर चीज में थोड़ा चिड़चिड़ापन, उसमें गुस्सा आना, हाथ की चीज फेंकना. और अभी अगर हम लोग देखें आफ्टर सर्जरी पोस्ट सर्जरी शी इज क्वाइट नॉर्मल. मतलब लोग उसमें डिफरेंस दिखा देते हैं यार ये वही स्क्रूआ है. मे बी डॉक्टर आल्सो सेड द सेम थिंग कि शी इज द सेम स्क्रूआ. सो वो बहुत सारी चीजें नोटिस कर रहे हैं. नाउ शी इज परफेक्टली नॉर्मल एंड थैंक यू सो मच फॉर डॉक्टर सौरव एंड डॉक्टर
whole team, but yeah, we are so happy. Thank you. अब हम अगली फैमिली की तरफ बढ़ेंगे. ये जो परिवार है, जैसे मैं बोलता हूँ हम लोग तो डॉक्टर्स हैं, हम मेडिसिन के आगे शायद और कुछ नहीं कर सकते, बट हर फैमिली और हर पेशेंट से एक वैल्यू होता है जो हम सीखते हैं. शायद कभी कभी बोल नहीं पाते, ऐसे मौके आते हैं जब शायद दिल से बात करने का मौका मिलता है. अगला जो फैमिली है पृथ्वीराज, मैं कल ही पापा से बात कर रहा था. आई थिंक डेडिकेशन ये एक शब्द है जो ये फैमिली को डिफाइन करता है. समर्पित है. पापा पिछले 6 महीने से और ऑफकोर्स चैलेंजेस फेस कर रहे होंगे, अपना काम करने के साथ पुणे से आए हैं सर्जरी करके. मुझे लगता है 6-7 महीने हो गए. आइए आप आइए स्टेज पर. 7 महीने हो गए. हाँ, 1 साल सर्जरी जनवरी से 7 मंथ्स, लगभग 7 महीने हो गए हैं. तब से अड़े हुए हैं. पुणे से उन्होंने पूरी फैमिली ने बेस बॉम्बे शिफ्ट किया है. एसआरसीसी हॉस्पिटल रिहैबिलिटेशन सेंटर में रिहैबिलिटेशन कर रहे हैं. एंड हर बार जब मुंबई में आते हैं सिर्फ सर्जरी अच्छी नहीं, इसकी खुशी नहीं मिलती है. जो फर्क दिखता है पृथ्वीराज में और जो डट के कमर कस के लगे हुए हैं, आई मीन इनके फैमिली और इनके लिए इमेंस रिस्पेक्ट है मन में कि जिस तरह से वो बच्चे तो बिना इसके सिर्फ सर्जरी या दवाई से बच्चा ठीक नहीं हो सकता. इसीलिए बोलते हैं एपिलेप्सी कैसी बीमारी जिसमें टीम की जरूरत है, सिर्फ हॉस्पिटल में नहीं घर में, घर का टीम ये
एपिलेप्सी हा थोडा डिफिकल्ट सब्जेक्ट आहे की जसे डॉक्टर्स खूप जास्त त्यावरती काम करत आहेत. देर आर सो म्हणजे इंडियामध्ये असं आहे की खूप सारे मुलं आहेत जे अनट्रीटेड. आय एम ऑल्सो एज्युकेटेड व्हेरी गुड बॅकग्राऊंड फॅमिली, बट I am also not aware about the epilepsy in detail from last 4-5 years. I am dealing with my child from last 7 years, but not good treatment or team of work, not found out in anywhere, not in the India, I think not in the world also, because this kind of setup required for the treating the child with the dealing with the epilepsy. Before that, every family find out the way how can they treat child at their own. First of all, at their own, with local doctors, with local information and all. But now the scenario is that the epilepsy child needs more attention, more teamwork. That found out over the team SRCC. इसीलिए मैं बोलता हूँ कि सभी डॉक्टर्स मतलब प्रेस मीडिया के मैं एक मैसेज देना चाहूँगा कि इन इंडिया सब जगह पे ट्रीटमेंट हो रहा है इन ऑल द स्टेट्स और द टीम वर्क एंड द डेलीगेशंस अर्ली स्टेज में अगर हम डिटेक्ट करके और उसको ट्रीट करते हैं तो बच्चों का काफ़ी अच्छा लाइफ और फ्यूचर हम अच्छा ग्रो कर सकते हैं। ये एक मैसेज है कि वी आर आफ्टर द सर्जरी से आने से पहले बहुत सारे ओपिनियंस लिए, बहुत सारे डॉक्टर्स का ओपिनियन लिया, सबका अलग अलग एस्पेक्ट था, ट्रायल एंड एरर्स थे। मगर एसआरसीसी में जब जिस टाइम 2019 में फर्स्ट टाइम वी मेट विद डॉक्टर अनायका मैम, दैट टाइम वी रियलाइज दैट दिस इज द सेंटर कि यहाँ पे आपको अच्छा गाइडेंस मिलता है। गाइडेंस इन सेंस कि आपको राइट ट्रैक दिया जाए, बाकी सब स्टेज आ गए कि सर्जरी जैसे हम लोग पहले शुरुआत में आपने जैसे बोला मिडिल क्लास करके we did not accept the surgery in initial stage. We take 2 years to take a decision for the surgery. But I felt guilty, or not guilty, so I have to take decision after 2 years. अगर मैं ये 2 साल पहले लिया होता तो child will be get
पृथ्वीराज बेसिकली पृथ्वीराज बच्चा पृथ्वीराज पैदा हुआ था में एक कॉमन कंडीशन है जो हम पीडियाट्रिक न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट बच्चों में देखते हैं कि शुगर लेवल ड्रॉप होने की वजह से ब्रेन को डैमेज होता है। उसके बाद पृथ्वीराज 3-4 साल तक ठीक ठाक डेवलप कर रहा था। 4 साल में पापा ने मुझे वीडियोस भेजे जो फुटबॉल खेला करता था, बातचीत करता था, वहां से स्कूल जाया करता था। वहां से पृथ्वीराज सर्जरी के पहले दिन तक ऐसे हालत में पहुंच गया जहां पृथ्वीराज बेड बाउंड था, ना वो उठ पाता था, ना वो चल पाता था, ना अपनी मांगे, ना उसको भूख थी, ना प्यास थी, ना खाना खा पाता था। वो डिपेंडेंट हो गया था और बेड बाउंड हो गया था। उस नौबत से आज तक पृथ्वीराज अभी फिलहाल पापा अगर 2 लाइन में आपसे बोले पृथ्वीराज क्या करता है?
सर ने वैसे बोला कि बेड बाउंड हो गया था एंड द मंथ ऑफ दिसंबर, 20 दिसंबर तक मेरा बच्चा कुछ नहीं खा पा रहा था। लिटरली डू नॉट टेक इनहेल और इनसेल इज मेडिसिन आल्सो। एक स्टेज आ गई कि अभी इसको ट्रीट कैसे करें। जिस टाइम से जिस दिन सर्जरी मेरा हुआ 17 जनवरी को, आफ्टर द सर्जरी from that surgery after the 3 days, that's from 3 days बच्चा अभी इतना सडनली ग्रो हो गया कि we are quite surprised। उसका 4 year before का जो मेमोरीज था, जब हमारे माइलस्टोन अचीव हो गया कि बच्चे का 4 year before जो मेमोरी था वो रिबूट हो गया। वो मेरे लिए काफी अच्छा था कि आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर पाता था, मेमोरी रिबूट हो गया। उसके बाद जितने चीजें उसकी भूल गया था, जितने उसके वाइटल ऑर्गन डैमेज हो गए, आफ्टर द सर्जरी दैट ऑर्गन बिकम्स एक्टिव। उसका स्पीच बंद हो गया था, उसका विजन चला गया था, उसका स्पीच इनेल करना।
I think I know I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I think एक important चीज जो पापा ने मुझे बताई थी इस मीटिंग, जो बच्चा बात नहीं कर रहा था, कल शाम को मैंने पापा को जस्ट फोन किया तो पापा खाना बना रहे थे, बिकॉज उन्होंने कहा कि पृथ्वीराज ने आज मांग की है कि मैं आज शाम को पनीर खाऊंगा। This is the journey that Pृth्वीराज has had in the last 6 months. So thank you so much, Papa. Thanks for spending the time. Thank you so much. I think
So in the interest of media, what we do is we take a group picture with all our key star doctors and our patients who have come here today to be a part of this journey with us. So requesting Dr. Pratnya, Dr. Anaita and Dr. Saurav to come on stage, and all the patients and parents who have come here, and post that we will keep the floor open for the Q&A session. And we will do the patient testimonials of the 2 patients who are remaining after the Q&A. Requesting everyone to please come on stage, all the patients and our doctors. आइए प्लीज आइए। you.